Recent intentional Chinese Eastern Airline crash. On March 21st, a China Eastern Airlines Boeing 737-800 with 132 people on board slammed into the mountains of southern China on Monday after a sudden tumble from cruising altitude at about the time when it would ordinarily start to plummet ahead of its landing. The media reported there were no signs of survivors on the domestic flight. Chinese media carried short highway video footage from a vehicle's dash cam seemingly displaying a jet diving to the ground behind trees at an angle of about 35 degrees off vertical. Investigators have so far not detected any mechanical or technical defects with the jet, the reports say, citing a preliminary assessment by U.S. officials. The pilots did not answer to recurrent calls from air traffic controllers in nearby jets during the sudden descent, authorities have reported. The aircraft did what it was told to do by someone in the cockpit, meaning someone in the cockpit deliberately wrecked the plane, according to the Wall Street Journal, which first reported the story, quoting a person acquainted with the U.S. officials' preliminary assessment of the cause of the crash. One source told Reuters that investigators were examining at whether the crash was a, quote, voluntary act involving crew inputs to the controls, though that does not automatically mean the crash was deliberate. Data from one of the plane's black box flight recorders was retrieved from the crash site, indicated that inputs to the controls pushed the aircraft into a near-vertical dive, the report stated. ABC News, citing U.S. officials, also disclosed that the crash was assumed to have been resulted by an intentional act. The cockpit voice recorder was disfigured during the crash, and it is uncertain whether investigators have been able to recover any information from it. The maker of the jet Boeing company, BA-N, and the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, refused to make any statement and referred questions to Chinese regulators. The Civil Aviation Administration of China, CAAC, which is leading the investigation, did not answer straight away to an invocation for a statement. On Wednesday, screenshots of the Wall Street Journal seemed to have been expurgated, both on China's Weibo social media platform and the WeChat messaging app. The hashtag topics China Eastern and China Eastern black boxes are banned on Weibo, which cites a breach of laws, and users are not able to share posts on the event in WeChat groups. The investigators of the crash are investigating whether it was due to deliberate action on the flight deck, with no proof found of a technical fault, according to Reuters, which cited 2 people briefed on the matter. China Eastern Airlines recently said the 3 pilots on board were professional and trained, as well as in good health. The airline individually told the Wall Street Journal that there was no sign that any of the pilots was in financial trouble. Last month, the CAAC reported details that the plane may have crashed intentionally and had, quote, gravely misled the public and interfered with accident investigation work, end quote. Chinese state media outlet The Global Times disclosed on Wednesday the crash is still under a microscope, with investigators in the process of examining flight data and the wreckage from the crash. It also reported the CAAC will go on to, quote, carry out the accident investigation in a scientific, rigorous, and orderly manner, end quote. A woman who had lost her husband in the incident, requested to be identified only by her surname, Wen, said she had not seen the Wall Street Journal report but anticipated the findings of the investigation would be announced soon. Wen disclosed that she and other members of victims' families had signed an agreement on China Eastern that included a clause on compensation, but refused to say how much was offered. The Wall Street Journal said the airline had declared in a statement that no proof had transpired that could establish if there were any faults in the aircraft. The 737-800 is a commonly flown predecessor to Boeing's 737 MAX, but lacks the systems linked to fatal 737 MAX crashes in 2018 and 2019 that led to a lengthy grounding of the MAX. China Eastern prevented from flying its entire fleet of 737-800 planes after the incident, but recommenced flights in mid-April, a decision extensively seen at the time as ruling out any immediate new safety concerns over Boeing's most used model. In a summary of an unpublished incident report last month, Chinese investigators did not ascertain any technical recommendations for the 737-800, which has been in service since 1997 with a strong safety record. In an interview with Reuters, NTSB Chair Jennifer Homendy said board investigators and Boeing had traveled to China to help with Chinese investigation, which had not recovered any safety problems entailing urgent action. Jennifer Homendy said if the board had any safety issues, it would, quote, issue urgent safety recommendations, end quote. The NTSB helped Chinese investigators with the examination of black boxes at its U.S. laboratory in Washington at China's appeal, in spite of political tension between the countries. CAAC said the NTSB verified that it did not disclose information about the China Eastern crash to the media, the state-owned Global Times reported. A conclusive report into the causes of the incident could take more than 2 years or more to compose, Chinese officials have said. Analysts hold responsible cocktail of human and technical factors on most crashes. Intentional crashes are exceptionally uncommon globally. Chinese airlines usually have a good safety record. The last major accident occurred 12 years ago. The China Eastern Airlines plane that crashed was less than 7 years old.